Welcome back to the Cast and Cost cEDH podcast. I'm Blake.
And I'm Chase, and today we're talking about how to get better in cEDH. So before we get into that, though, we gotta talk. We got a little bit of housekeeping stuff.
Yeah.
All right, now this last Wednesday, we made the comment about this, and some of you guys are awesome because within like the first day, basically, of that video being released, we got like 30 plus subs.
Oh yeah.
Right? But you know, I think the thing is that's not enough. No, it is no. We do appreciate everyone that went on there and has liked and subscribed to our things and have been commenting on our videos and things like that. But let me just take a quick look. 83.8% of you that are not subscribed to the channel. We got to change that. We're so close to hitting 1,000. We're so close to me having to take flubs to a big event. Blake having to take Yuriko to a big event. I don't know if it'd be the cookout or not. We're debating on that. But, we're so close to hit that 1,000 mark for the channel. And there are 83.8% of you that are not subscribed to us. Come on. Come on.
I don't want to take Yuriko to a big event.
You don't want to, but if you want to see us do it, like, you got to subscribe sooner than later. So that's the alarms. Go subscribe to us. But yeah, that's our only housekeeping thing as far as today goes. But as far as what we're actually talking about today with getting better in cEDH, I feel like this is kind of piggybacking off of what we talked about a few weeks ago in our last tournament report, where at the tail end of that, we kind of had discussed, like, both of us were kind of in a funk, like we weren't really happy where we were at as far as, not just players, but there's, I think, some other factors involved in that. I know I walked away from that event like going, I need to do something different. And here we are a couple weeks later, and I'll be honest, like I haven't been as good about getting out and playing, or like I'm just now last night figured out how to actually work spell table, got a game in finally, sitting there like an hour trying to figure this shit out.
I was gonna say figured out is like very loose.
Very, very loose. But hey, we're on spell table now, so I mean we might be able to start jamming some games with people for sure. But like, I don't know, I even after that discussion, even for me personally, I've just been like, I've not been motivated to get out. I've not been motivated to like really play all that much. Like, I'm still enjoying being in the space and keeping up to date on things, and like, obviously us doing this, and then like you know me, like I'm brewing shit all the time. Like, I already have a couple decks prepared for Avatar and things like that. I need to work on Spider-Man, but there's not enough good stuff out. Like, I'm still enjoying doing those things, but like I've just had a really rough time pushing myself to go, okay, how am I actually going to get better? What is it I'm really going to do to like take those next steps?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things that's helped me here recently is going into Criticals League and actually like getting games in. That's been a lot of fun because they've got a lot of really good players in there. Which if y'all aren't members of that already, go join. Like, there's a ton of good players in there. Like, I've had the opportunity now to get some games in with like really good players. Like,
Yeah.
I got some games in with Logan. Got a couple games in with him. I got a couple games in with Matt Hayes. I've gotten some games in with like really good pilots on like certain niche decks, like certain time, like really good time pilots. I've gotten games in with other like content creators and people in the space too. I think that the reason that we're even talking about this today is, depending on where you're at, like obviously if you're in a scene where cEDH is like booming and it's you've got like a thriving local meta, and you've got all these players that are constantly coming together and playing the game, and you've got these people that are not necessarily, I don't say like, it's okay to have somebody that's like a specialist on a certain type of a deck, and they maybe love that deck, but I think certain people suffer a lot from not having a local shop near them that has like a very booming cEDH meta, they don't have a lot of players around them that are willing to play the best decks in the format, or even like even if they did play them, they wouldn't play them obviously like to the level of like some of these better players in the space.
Yeah.
I think that that's something that me and you are starting to run into now, where we have a very weird local scene. It's not we don't have a huge local scene. We've obviously like tried to grow it, and we've been noticing more and more people coming in. But like the deck choices and the things that people want to play are very different. We have a couple of people that will play local or like meta decks. We have people that play Kennen, people that play like Sisse. Obviously, you yourself play Sisse. People like Joey and people like that playing Blue Farm, but we don't have a ton of people on very popular like meta picks. We have a lot of weird like fringe like niche stuff. We have like Green Selvala, me myself, I'm on Zur, and then like my other deck is like Sithis. Probably not gonna run into many of those at a tournament. You've got people that are on like Time, which is fine. Like Time's really good, but it's starting to kind of fall out of favor right now anyways, and you don't see a lot of Times. You see a few, but you don't see a lot,
or at least what we traditionally see with Time. Like I feel like there's been a shift where it's maybe like a little less stacksy and going more into like maybe not Turbo Cradle, but like going into the more like lands based Time
build.
For
sure.
And I don't feel like neither one of us have had much experience seeing even that version of the deck.
Well, and I think that's a big thing to point out as well. Like we have people that again, like we have people that want to specialize in certain decks, which again is fine. But there is something to be said about playing against the best decks in the format consistently and against really good pilots with those decks. Like, we even have people in our space that obviously like they'll play good decks, but they may change the deck that they're playing often. Like they'll play a deck for a bit, and then they jump to this other really good meta deck, and then another good meta deck, and another good meta deck. But they don't spend a lot of time like on one specific deck, so we don't get to see what you would traditionally see in a tournament at our local shop. So like things like that can be very difficult. I think Spell Table has allowed us to bridge that gap and actually get games in against meta decks, and not only meta decks, like good competent pilots that are very, very good. When I say competent, I'm not saying that the people around us aren't competent. I just mean like people that truly know these top tier decks and they could pick up anything and just crush with it. Like I'm playing against, again, like Logan, Matt, these guys that are, both of them made the Invitational. They're really good players. You can just tell it's different. Like the way that they politic, the way that they like assess the board state, the way, like their actions when they're actually in the game, like the things that they're going to tutor for, their ability to find their windows. All of these things are just incredible. Like I had a game against Logan that we played the other day, and he just kept throwing up win attempts on the stack. He didn't even have a value engine out on board. Like he wasn't seeing more cards to be able to like fight through this. We just continued to throw interaction at him, and he would get stopped and he'd go again, get stopped, go again, get stopped, go again, and he still won. Like no value. he had Smothering Tithe on board, obviously, and mana's mana, but other than that, it was Tim to plan, and he just continued to we just try to stop, and he just kept going. Playing against players that are good like that, like knowing when to sequence certain spells, like not throwing the wrong piece of interaction out at the wrong time, not like actually mulliganing appropriately, like skills that you're not going to get unless you're playing against the best people. Like I would never be able to play in a pod like that unless I was like top 4 at a cEDH event, and I'd probably even have to be a big event for all of us to have been there. Meanwhile, I can just, get done with a work day and hop on Spell Table, and I can just hop into that pod casually and be like, hey, what's up? And like get to jam a game like that. So I think that I think that's what we're starting to notice now. Like we're finding more opportunities, but trying to help other people find those opportunities as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think just to kind of continue with that, as you were talking, I think here's the things that kind of came to mind for me, and I was thinking about as you're discussing those points, like, because not everyone is going to have access to Spell Table all the time. Like, not everyone, and again, Blake made the point, like, if you have access to Spell Table and you haven't joined Criticals League, like, go do that. Like, I can't, I can't really say much because even I haven't necessarily hopped on yet and started playing in the league and things like that. And that's on me, but I think that kind of adds to the points I'm going to make for this. Like whether you have access to a strong local meta or not, whether you have access to Spell Table or not, I think that really what you have to do in the first place is like be able to have a very consistent group that has a like you have a set of standards of what you are going for, whether that means, and whenever I say consistent group, I don't just mean like, hey, we're going to meet every Thursday night or every Tuesday night and play, or that we play every chance we get. I mean, like, okay, when we are going to sit down and play, we are going to play at this level, and this is the standard for what we are going to play at. Just kind of everyone in your group being able to have that concise understanding of like, hey, this is what the goal in mind is. It is not just we are going to sit and record games, or we're going to sit and just jam hours upon hours upon hours. Because I mean, and don't get me wrong, it's fun. It can be fun, but whenever for example, like you are trying to improve and you're trying to get better, and there might be like one or two people within the pod that either aren't in that mindset, they're there just to have fun, they just want to jam games, like the games just don't feel as not just fulfilling, but they don't like serve as much purpose as the games that you are going to have with a consistent group that is going to meet on a regular basis for the intent on getting better at the game.
Yeah. Well, I think that is a very important point too, like just the idea of intentional practice. I think a lot of people forget that if you're not practicing again with intention, you're not going to get better. Like you may get like incrementally better, like very small amounts, but you're not going to see these, like, as Eric refers to it, as like level up moments. Like you're not just going to all of a sudden be like, whoa, that just unlocked something for you, and you will have these level up moments throughout your journey in cEDH. Typically, like people will, maybe somebody says something, or you hear something whenever you're hearing like a content creator speak, or you hear another like big name in the space, like somebody that's a very good pilot, whatever it may be. Like there were times where I was talking to Ian, and Ian would say something to me, and I was like, wow, that's great. Like I never thought of that. And then all of a sudden, like I would take that into games, and I felt like immediately it made me a better player. Just the one little thing that he said, I was, wow, that's a huge, like good, like just a golden nugget of information I was able to take. Or being able to sit down with other good players, and like you see the way that they interact. I think that even just the card choices that you see some of these people make, it's so funny. It's things that you won't understand unless you're in their shoes, actually getting games in consistently, playing against really good players. Like, for instance, I'm on a card that I think is really funny. It's like Steel Enchantment. It's like a good example. Okay, like I like Steel Enchantment, and especially like in a list like Xur, it's an aura, like an enchantment aura, so I can just put it into play. It immediately comes in attached to the thing. There's no window for somebody to say, hey, I'm going to count, or I'm going to counter this, because it's just putting it straight into play. It's not, it's skipping the stack essentially. They can stifle obviously the Xur ability, but I don't have to tell them what I'm getting. But like being able to put it straight into play, take value resources from other people. If I hard cast it, like I'm essentially just denying somebody resources. I've learned, or I've noticed in a lot of these games, people want multiple people to have resources, because if one person has a resource, they just kind of run away with the game. If multiple people have resources, they are each drawing into pieces to fight each other, and sometimes that can let you kind of like set back and find your window to go for a win. But also, if you then establish a value engine, they're feeding your value engine. Do you know what I mean? And just little things like that I've noticed. Or something like a Gilded Drake causing fights at a table, not like fist fight, nothing like that, but like causing people to start spending interaction that they wouldn't otherwise need to do, because they're like, I don't want to lose that resource. Or certain like silver bullet stacks pieces, as like Logan refers to them, things like that, where it comes down and somebody goes, this completely shuts me out if I don't have this. And then now somebody has to blow a piece of interaction that could have been used to stop a win, but instead they're going to kill this thing, or they're going to find an opportunity to like bounce that spell, whatever it may be, and then somebody else goes for a win. Like little things like that you're not going to get unless you're playing against those good players.
Yeah, like Curse Totem.
Exactly, like Curse Totem. That card that like I tested out, and it shuts Chase down every time, but that card needs to come out.
Well, I think the points you're making there, and I was going to kind of tie in what happened last night too to this. It's something. I'm trying to think of how I want to word it. Like, even someone made a comment in that previous video that we're talking about here, where they were talking about like just being able to have discussions on things after the games are over and talking about either certain pieces or being more reflective on your games. And I think there's a lot of ways of going about and doing that. But like, you're talking about, you utilizing certain pieces, testing them out. Even last night when we hopped on spell table and we're playing with a couple people, and like Ben had asked me like, hey, why are you on this card in the deck? And I'm just like, well, part of me, it's like, one, I've had an okay experience on it before. Two, the person that I'm actually like getting a lot of inspiration from this deck is like very high on this card and these cards. But then I was like, but you know what? Like, after thinking about it, it really kind of lowers the card quality of the deck. And sometimes it's very situational. So like even after that very brief conversation of like, why are you including this, or why do you run these certain pieces, or why are you doing this, like, you all were about to hop on for another game, I muted myself and instantly just started making cuts and edits to my deck. But like, but that's kind of this other point where, like, I guess the first point that I was making with, as far as like a way of getting better, is like making sure that everyone in your play group is on the same level, not necessarily skill wise, but I'm saying like is on the same understanding of like, this is the purpose of why we are going to be playing today, or this is when we meet, this is what we are going for.
Yeah.
And being consistent in that, and being able to ensure everyone is on the same page. This one, like that we're talking about now, is more of like, okay, let's make sure that we're not just like jamming games and then going into the next one. Let's actually be more reflective on what it is that we are doing in the games, and whether that is an action that we took, or the card choices that are going into the deck, or okay, maybe this didn't have as much of an impact as I thought on the game. Let me get this other player's perspective on this, so that way I can have a more informed opinion on, okay, should I actually be running this or not?
Yeah. Well, I think that, and again, like, kind of go, I have a bad tendency of just like flying off whenever
I know that's why I'm trying to bring you back into it. Of like, let's talk about things to get better, but go into your thing.
But even so, again, like just the intentional practice thing, I think that obviously you can probably relate to that. Like whenever you were, well, I mean, obviously you were teaching band at one point, like you were a band director. If people just were sitting down and they were just messing around with their instruments, like they're not actually intentionally saying like, okay, I think that I'm struggling with insert whatever skill, I need to work on this skill, and they don't sit down and actually try to work that skill, the likelihood that they're just going to magically like figure that out is very low.
Right.
Being able to say, hey, I need to actually work on this. This is an area of my game that I think is bad. Me in like jiu-jitsu, for instance, I'll go and I have buddies that I can literally message and be like, hey, would you like to get together and drill today? And when we get together, I'll ask them like, is there anything you're working on? And they'll say, yeah, I'm working on this new move. Is there anything you're working on? And it may not even be like a specific technique. It just may be a certain thing. Like, hey, I'm working on, I'm trying to deny people like a pass. And so I found that like I'm having a hard time stopping somebody if they're like trying to pass from like a far distance, but like if they're trying to do like close passing, I'm fine. So then we work the skill of, okay, I've got to stop people that are trying to pass from like farther away. Like, and then we start to workshop it. I may fail a ton of times, and then eventually I'll start to find something that's working. I'm like, oh wow, okay. And then I start to, you just go off of it. You find that piece, and then you just let it like expand on it, and eventually like, it may not happen that one session, but we may do 2, 3, 4, 5, a lot of sessions, however many it may be. And then now I'm like, man, I'm feeling really good now about like passing from distance, or like preventing passes from distance. And then you just kind of go from there. I think that that's something that you should, if you have a local group, even if everybody's not running, like you're not running into a pot of like 4 blue farms, or like a blue farm, a Cannon, a TNT, a Magda, whatever it may be. You've got a fringe group. You've got maybe this Sisay over here, but that's not on a traditional Sisay list. You've got a Zur, you've got a Tyum, you've got some VV list, or you've got some, Derevi, whatever it may be. You've got these decks that not all of them are necessarily like top tier decks, but you're saying, hey, okay, we all have things we want to work on. Let's try to decide what skill we're going to emphasize in this. Maybe it's politics. Yeah. Maybe it's, mulligans. Maybe you literally sit there and you guys start going through mulligans. You don't even play in a game. You're just conducting mulligans, and you're looking at the pod composition, and you say, hey, I think that I would keep this hand. And then we all sit down and we go, why would you keep that hand? We all figure out what hands we're going to keep. Or maybe we spin one at a time. It's like, hey, we're going to resolve mulligans. You're on your first 7. Go ahead. And then we look. Ian did that with me whenever I did a coaching session with them, and it was crazy how, or even when I was with Logan, there would be times that I would keep interaction, and instead I could have kept something else that was going to like advance my game state,
Yeah.
or I would look at cards and I would be like, well, I can't cast this, and he's like, well, isn't this other thing also like equally uncastable? And then I'd look at it and be like, oh yeah, you're right. And then we would just decide completely. Like I was about to keep that hand, and next thing you know, he's like, let's just mulligan and we'll go again. And then just stuff like that, being intentional. I think that those are skills that people should try to work, and things that they should focus on if they're wanting to get better. I think it can be tough if you do again have like a small local group, because not everybody's going to be equally invested. You may have people that are obviously invested in other hobbies and skills, but they
Right.
kind of dabble in cEDH. You may have people that want to spend a ton of time in like cEDH, and then you may have people that they've already spent a ton of time in cEDH, but now they're starting to kind of like burn out, or whatever it may be. Everybody can be at like different stages. I think it's important for people to, like you think about in a casual pod, people talk about like rule zero. I almost
Yeah.
think it's like a rule zero discussion, but for cEDH.
Yeah.
Everybody's sitting down saying, what do we want to get out of this game? Are we just playing to have fun right now? And if that's the case, then we just play to have fun. We're like, cool, we're just gonna shuffle up, we're just gonna play. We're just, it's almost like kitchen table magic. We're just like having a beer and hanging out and
Yeah.
just shooting the shit and playing a game, whatever. Whoever wins, wins. But if we're saying, hey, no, I'm actually trying to get better for tournaments, it's really hard to do that if you're sitting down at a table and two people or maybe three people are saying, hey, we're really trying to prep for this tournament. And then maybe you have another player at the table that's not in that same mindset. And they can have a tendency to skew the way that the game may go. They may interact at weird spots that people normally wouldn't interact at. They're not open to politicking. They may, get blown out and then they just kind of throw a game. They wheel at a total inopportune time, or they counter something just because they got frustrated because you countered something that they had.
Yeah.
But it's not stopping a win attempt. It's just like, I'm going to shut you off of this value engine. It's like, well, you're still in, you know what I mean? You're still in the game. You just need to wait and like find your time, like bide your time. You know what I mean?
Right.
Set back, let the other people interact with each other. I mean, I had a game one day when I was in the league that I ended up I went to 4, and I had a gemstone, which put me to 3 for my starting hand essentially. And then I literally went like turn 1. Before it got to me, I like mystical tutored, put a dark red on top, dark red, necro, and I had no cards in hand. I was like, is it sticking or is it not? Got countered. Somebody offered it, gave me 2 treasures, and I literally was like, cool, I have no cards in hand. I could have very easily said, hey, I'm out of this game. But I went into it with like, no, how do I fight back out of a situation like this? I ended up winning that game.
Yeah.
I was able to get Zur online, kind of politic a little bit and be like, hey, look, like I understand Zur can kind of be scary, but I have 0 cards in hand. Like at this point, I'm not just going to magically win the game out of nowhere with a Zur swing. Like I'm just trying to find a value engine. I'm going to help interact where I can. I'm control deck. And people were like, okay, that's fine. So just going into games with intentionality.
Yeah. Well, and something I was thinking about before you got on to that, like when you were talking about like if you're going into playing a pod and being intentional about it, but then you have someone that is maybe not wanting to, be like kind of conform to that in a way. I think one thing I was thinking about earlier, and I didn't say it, but I think it fits in with this now, is accountability.
Mhm.
I think that, where not just you're trying to be consistent and precise and have intentionality behind it, like if that is the goal and then the game turns into what the goal was not supposed to be for whatever you're doing for that day, I think you kind of have to hold not just yourself but the pod accountable, or
Yeah.
that individual person.
Yeah.
Like, there have been times whenever I feel like I've had discussions with like people in our local meta where they're just like, I really wish that we could have said something that maybe like to this one individual, where it's like, hey, we are playing with the intent on preparing for this event, and even though you're playing at a cEDH table, you don't necessarily have the cEDH deck, or you're not playing in this manner. Like, can you hop out of this? And I know that kind of sounds like a shitty thing to do, or it sounds like like some people would almost think that is an arrogant thing to do.
Yeah.
But I think that if you are actually trying to make the progress and improve and things like that, like you kind of have to have those conversations with people at times. And so making sure that you're keeping not just yourself in check, but others that are playing with you, and maintaining that sense of accountability is important too.
Well, we ourselves have experienced this, especially in our local scene. And again, I won't throw names or anything out like that, but we have had moments where people didn't want to play with other people because they essentially had the mindset of, I don't want to play with quote unquote like bad players because I feel like it makes you worse as a player. And I definitely at the time thought to myself, I don't know that I agree with that. I think that that's kind of weird. It's like very elitist type of a mindset, and again, I kind of approached it from, I just use jiu-jitsu because it's what I can relate to. But, from a jiu-jitsu perspective of like, well, I mean, I roll with people all the time that, are worse than me. And like, I still think I get better, but you don't get punished in those pods for making bad plays or bad decisions, or you can get handed games that you shouldn't have had any business being handed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, it's like whenever, and don't mean to cut you off,
No,
but it's like whenever you were getting ready for Summer Pact, the last event that we went to, and you're like, dude, the few days leading up to it, I feel great about Zur. I don't feel like I've dropped a game
I hadn't,
at all. And then you get there and
it went 0-3-1.
Yeah. So, but I mean that I feel like I'm interjecting with that because I feel like that adds to that point where like you ran away with the game where you had like 3 heuristic studies down all at the same time, and then like you had like you were talking about like at one point like you had like 9 draw triggers on the stack.
Yeah.
But like
I had three Esper Sentinels on board, and I had 3 heuristic studies.
Yeah,
on
but
board.
like at the level we are wanting to play at, and where we are wanting to be. How realistic is that board state?
Never. That should never happen. At that point, everybody at the table would immediately say, how do we address this? People are not going to all of a sudden go, I'm going to push win here. They go, how do we shut this off? How do we stop this? And then the rest of the table can politic and say, and it probably wouldn't have even got to that point. I probably would have maybe got my second heuristic online and already had like an Esper Sentinel or something down. And people would have been like, hey, that's a lot of value engines over there.
Right.
And we may have seen like a board wipe come down. We may have seen a deluge. We may have seen an oppo come down, something. And everybody agree, like, we'll defend this oppo so that there's no more tutoring and stuff like that. You know what I mean? There's times where, I mean, even in certain games, like you may opposition agent something that's like a May trigger, like a May search. And then they'll give you their deck and you search and you look at their hand. And then afterwards you go, oh crap, that was a May. You didn't have to let me have that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's stuff like that where you can get away with certain things, or you pick up certain play patterns that it just doesn't truly benefit you. It feels good to win in that moment, but it doesn't really benefit you. Like I've had people tell me like, hey, I'm doing really well with this deck. I think that this is what I'm wanting to start taking to tournaments, or I'm feeling really good about it. And then they go to the tournament and then they don't do well. Or they end up in a certain pod and they don't do well, and they're like, I don't understand. And it's because they're getting away with things that they normally shouldn't get away with at those higher levels. Like, I think that people can, I think a lot of people can relate to this, but I'm sure we've all experienced where your skills can truly shine when you go to a tournament and maybe you win those first couple of games. You end up in those higher tables with the other really like good players, and not to, obviously disparage people that are like, I don't say bad players, but they're just like not as experienced. But like you can end up in those higher tables, and now everybody is using the skills that they have at their disposal. They're using the politics. Mm-hmm. They're using their meta, like information on the meta decks and what's available. They're mulliganing appropriately based off of what they're seeing, not just on what their deck does, but like what they're seeing at the table, saying, hey, I see that this deck is over here. I probably should mulligan appropriately for this. Hey, I see what this deck's doing over here. I should probably mulligan appropriately for this. Oh, here's a stacks deck. I know that they run a lot of like artifact hate. I probably shouldn't mulligan for a freaking One Ring and, an untapper and everything. I'm speaking from experience. I can, I'm looking at an Elevere, and without even thinking, the moment that I said keep and then the game started, I realized to myself, I literally looked at the Elevere and I said, dude, none of this is going to matter. I'm not even going to be able to, I guarantee you we see an artifacts stacks piece come down turn 1. I guarantee it. Yeah. And literally Null Rod, Oof, both come down. And I'm like, man. And I'm looking at a hand of One Ring, Vault, Key, Monamo on board, thinking I'm about to run away with this game. Nope. And that's what I get. I mean, you literally, and it's stuff like that where if you don't do well at the tournament at the start, you do start to end up at those lower tables. And then the skills that typically can make somebody a really good cEDH player don't translate as well in those lower tables. And that's why you can start to see people do poorly consistently, and then like they end up going freaking 0-5 at a tournament because they rely a lot on politics because they're used to playing against, maybe they are used to playing against good players, or maybe they don't ever rely on politics because they don't ever play against people that want to talk. And then and it shows itself like as the tournament's playing out. You know what I mean? It's hard to politic at a table whenever everybody's just dead set on like, I'm just going to go for my win cons and try to win, and they don't want to hear you out. Like, you're looking at somebody and you're like, I have you dead to rights right now, but I'm willing to talk here because I'm also scared of this, and you're able to interact with this. Let's talk. Like, I kind of have a loaded gun at your head.
Yeah.
We can work together to make sure, like, you'll still get a draw if nothing happens. I mean, in that instance, like, okay, cool. You have an incentive to be like, sure, like I'm willing to at least get a point here. But some people will be like, nah, just do it. The moment you do that, your chances of winning literally go from like even if it's just minute and small, down to literally zero. You're telling the person, remove me from the game. I feel like that just never makes sense in my opinion. Like, never. If you think that you truly are like pushing for a win and you can get through, you're like, nah, dude. Like, I mean, he's showing me a piece of interaction, but I don't think anybody else has interaction. I've got multiple pieces. Like, I'm going to push.
Yeah.
At that point, sure. I can understand whenever you're like, hey, I'm not taking that deal, whatever. But if somebody truly has you dead to rights and you're like, no, just kill me because you're just like, whatever, like you're just done with the game. It's hard to get better in those situations because I don't think you're going to see good players do that a lot.
Yeah.
If somebody's like, I could swing at you with an Infect Atali and you're dead right now, but, I also am like way more afraid of this person over here. Will you agree not to win on your turn, like as we go through this turn cycle? And a lot of people, I feel like at a high table would say, sure, I go from guaranteed I'm going to lose the game because he's going to attack me with a Tali to sure, I will not win on my turn. Absolutely. That buys me another turn. I get to see another turn and I can see if I can piece something together.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the hard part about what you're discussing right now, one, I think it brings about a whole lot of different points.
Yeah, yeah.
But if I had to like summarize it into the main thing that I'm thinking of whenever you're talking about that, like I feel like, and again, kind of the piece of today, how do we actually improve? How do we actually get better? Like what you were talking about, whether it's the mulligan situation and being aware of like turn order, whether you're talking about politicking, whether you're talking about just being aware of what decks are doing, like making sure you're aware of what your own deck is trying to do, all these different pieces, like it does come down to awareness. Like that, I think ultimately, like all of that kind of summed up just comes down to awareness. And then it's like, okay, how do you improve that?
Mm-hmm.
How do you actually get to the point where you are seeing all those things? And really all it can come down to, I feel like at least, is just experience.
Mm-hmm.
And not just being able to, to be able to recall and learn from your experiences or things like that, but literally just getting the quality reps in of the game. And I do think it kind of goes back to that initial point of you have to be able to find a group that is going to be willing and open enough to go, yes, this is what we are doing. This is the goal for today, or this is the goal of this week as we are preparing for this. You have to have that level of awareness in those games so that way you can actually translate those skills into the tournament prep, or not just the prep, but the event itself and things like that.
Well, and to go back to the point that I made earlier about like the situation we had even had in our local scene, I absolutely think that you can get better as a player playing against worse players. Because if that weren't true, the best players in the space that we have right now would never get better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like all of the people that made the Invitational, they're playing against obviously like other good competent pilots, but you could technically say like objectively they are playing against like worse players. And I don't mean that in like a weird like disparaging like type of way or like, like not demeaning, but in the sense of their accolades are higher than the accolades of the people that they're playing against. They have more tournament wins, a higher win rate, whatever it may be. That's essentially all I'm saying. You may beat them plenty of times, and then they may beat you plenty of times. But just accolades alone, like their accolades are higher than other people are playing against. they continue to get better. I think that the most important thing there is playing against people that also want to get better. It does,
Yeah.
even if you're a brand new person to the game and you're terrible, and that's because we were all there at one point. I remember showing up and playing my first game of cEDH, and I had played so much casual Magic that I kind of knew what I was doing whenever I picked the deck up, and I was able to like get a win. I felt good. I was like, oh yeah, because I think it was Brandon's Pantlaza deck that he actually let me use. I was like, oh wow, this is really cool. I like this. But when I first got into the format, I was so lost. I didn't know what any of these win cons were. I didn't know how these decks piloted. I didn't know what to counter. I didn't know what to do. I was so lost. Even the decks that people were handing me, I was like, I have no idea.
Yeah.
There were combos in my own deck that people had suggested that I truly didn't understand how they worked. We all start somewhere. You know what I mean? Like they'll be like, oh yeah, you do this. And I'm like, I don't understand it, but I'll add it in because you told me to.
Yeah.
But if you are intentionally saying, hey, I want to get better, so every time we are playing the game, I'm going to try and get better, whether it's with my deck or whether it's at understanding your deck, whatever it may be. If you're intentionally doing that, I honestly think that everybody around you will get better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because again, like everybody's wanting to improve. But the moment that you sit down at a table and you try to ask somebody, or you try to tell people, hey, we're prepping for this, or we're intentionally trying to do this, or whatever, and somebody just says, well, like, I'm not really in that mindset right now. I don't want to, like, I'm just trying to play a fun casual game. I think that, throwing a couple of those in there every once in a while, just keep everything like nice. Like maybe pick up a deck that isn't your tournament deck. Maybe you just pick up a deck that you're like, oh, okay, cool. Like that's fine. We can just play like a fun little casual game. I'll pick up Sithis, whatever. Like that's fine. But then also, if it's happening every time, at that point you have to have that discussion and be like, hey, we aren't aligning here. Like we can't every time we play just be like, it's just a casual game, unless that's what everybody at the table wants every time. But if like most of the group is saying, hey, we want to get better, everybody kind of has to be on board and say, okay, hey, I'm willing to get where you guys are at. Like, I'm willing to come up to that mindset and mentality, and like we'll do that. Right. And then maybe you set a precedence for that game, rock and roll from there. But I absolutely think that you can get better from playing with, again, quote unquote, worse players. I just think that everybody, while in those games, needs to have the mentality of, we are all playing right now to get better.
Right.
If not, then I honestly think it will make you a worse player.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, no, and I agree with you on that. I think something that came to mind for me whenever you started, and maybe I'm kind of segueing to a different part of this, but still like the level of awareness and making sure that you're maintaining those skills or working towards those skills, things like that. You made a comment there of like when you started getting into the format, like you were kind of being thrown all these different decks. And I don't think it's a bad thing to try and test like different decks and see what you feel more comfortable with. Like I think that is a good thing to do, especially whenever you are like trying to really refine, like, okay, what is the play style that best suits me, or what do it like, not and not just like a standpoint of like, what do I have the most fun with? Because like I've gone on record saying like, even though I like Sisse, I've been taking Sisse to events because I do still enjoy the deck, but I'm not. I would rather go to tournaments, and especially if we start going to bigger tournaments. And I feel like there's been discussion, like you had a conversation with Matt, within the past week or so, about playing certain decks for the intention on winning too. And I say all that to say this: I don't think it serves you as a player very well if you continue to switch, because at some point it's not the deck, right? And this was another thing that kind of spurred the conversation today. I saw a Reddit post yesterday and kind of shared that with Blake on like why does my deck suck? And a lot of people were going on there and just like evaluating the deck and like talking about like, there's a lot of like missing pieces. Like there wasn't a lot of things that you would see in a typical cEDH deck. You got to be aware of the pod composition, things like that. And I don't want to go on like a tangent of that per se, but like the more you are switching a deck and like not really learning what that deck is doing, but you just switch decks every day,
Mhm.
yeah, you might be gain some sense of awareness of the deck, but you're not really understanding the full capabilities of that deck. And
Mhm.
you're having to switch so much that you're not really gaining a grasp on your abilities
Mhm.
in the game itself.
Mhm.
So I think that is like another piece in getting better. It is that it's not a bad thing to be able to switch it up and figure out what suits your play style.
Mhm.
But at some point, you have to look at it and go, okay, enough is enough. I need to narrow it down, or I need to stick on this one thing and really understand it.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that even kind of goes back to that accountability piece. Like if you were constantly switching, and I've been in a bad habit of doing it too. Like we were talking the other day, I was like, yeah, I've been printing things off for the sake of the channel and trying to like not just understand decks, but making sure that there's some diversity in what we are playing as far as the pod compositions, and putting that out there as content. But is it really helping me improve?
Mm.
Because most of the time I'm just sitting down and like it's the first time I'm sitting there playing with that deck. Like even for the one that's coming out this weekend, or even last weekend's gameplay where I was on Marnius, like, uh, or sorry, rephrase that. The one that's coming out for this weekend, first time sitting down and playing with it. A couple weekends ago at this point, because today is Monday, I was playing Marnius for the first time, and I wasn't really thinking about what I was doing in that pod
Yeah.
composition. But like, again, I think that you have to be aware of what your deck is doing and stick with that. You cannot just continue to just jump around,
Mhm.
and if your performance is bad, start
Mhm.
blaming the deck itself.
Yeah. Well, and I think that that's a huge, like a very important piece to like something you just threw out. But I think that people a lot of times have a tendency to blame the deck for it not performing well, but there has to be at some point, you do also have to look back at yourself and say, hey, am I not performing to the best of my abilities? Like, there, again, like now I keep bringing up jujitsu. I get it, but I'm gonna go back to that example. There's a lot of techniques that
Yeah.
a lot of high level people use. The difference between somebody at a very low level using it and a very high level using it can make a massive difference. Like there are some people that will hit, like submissions, like arm bars, kimuras, all sorts of different stuff all the time. And there's people at a different level that can never get them to work. And it can literally just be certain little mechanical differences and just reps on the actual deck. I think that if you just want to pick a deck up just for the fun of it and say, hey, I just want to kind of figure out what this deck's doing, you may get a very surface level idea of what the deck's doing. But to truly, truly, truly develop, I guess, like mastery of a deck, you've got to just put so many freaking repetitions in on the
Yeah.
deck to understand like what's possible, what can you do, like what options are available in the deck. And I agree with Eric kind of threw this out there to me. I do think that there does come a point to where getting more reps on the deck is not the thing that is needed to get better. I think at some point you do have to put a deck down and just say, hey, I'm going to pick something else up that's different and I'm going to spend a lot of time on this. But I think that it it almost needs to be in like a different archetype, if that makes sense. If you're
Yeah.
playing something that's turbo, maybe saying, hey, I'm gonna take a step back and I'm not gonna play turbo. I want to play a control deck, or I want to play a deck that's, I don't know, like maybe stacks, whatever you're in the mood for. Maybe picking something else up, learning a different archetype. Now when you truly can figure out what archetype do I kind of like the most,
Yeah.
and then once you have arrowed that in, then saying, okay, I have decided that I like turbo. Now start to pick up different turbo decks and narrow in. Like, how turbo are we talking here? Do you want to be like Ral and constantly try to put up turn one, turn two wins and like never see a land ever? Or do you want to be like Rogside Turbo, where it's like I win on like maybe turn two, turn three. I've still got access to like that Grixis shell with like, the consistency of these tutors and other stuff. I get access to a lot of like free interaction. You start to figure out like how turbo do I want to be? How control do I want to be? How,
Right.
I guess, like mid-range, whatever you want to say, how mid-range do I want to be? How stacksy do I want to be? Like, where is the sweet spot? I think what you're doing right now is you're picking up different archetypes and saying, what does turbo feel like? What does control feel like? What does this other, the cradle farm type decks, like what does that feel like?
Yeah.
Figuring that out, and then afterwards, now you're like, okay, now let's hone it in. I figured out that this is the archetype that I feel like I'm doing well with and what I like. Then again, picking up different decks that are within that archetype. But I do think just constantly bouncing around, especially if you're just bouncing around from like fringe deck to fringe deck to fringe deck to fringe deck, it's gonna be tough to get better.
Yeah.
Because I think that honestly, and when we say it at the end of every episode, I truly think the best way to get better at cEDH is to just play cEDH. And I think that the thing that makes a lot of these pilots so good is when they play the best decks, they truly get to play a lot of cEDH. There have been plenty of times where I have played decks that are not good, like truly not good. Like I'm talking like trash decks, nothing against them, but they're not good. Like we can look and they're objectively just not in the top anywhere. They're not good.
Hey,
and
fuck you. Flubs is good.
not even that. Not even that. But you like look at the deck and you go, this is not good. And because of that, you either have amazing hands or you have awful hands.
Yeah.
And because of that, you literally get to play no Magic that game. You're not going to get better in that game.
Yeah.
Just sitting there doing nothing the whole game, you're not going to get better in that game.
Yeah.
And it's going to feel like the biggest waste of time.
Yeah.
Whereas if you just play something that's good and you get to start to end up in those interaction wars with certain people and you say, oh, like when should I deploy? Like I've got a couple counter spells. Which one do I deploy first? Do I want to use the offer or do I want to use the swan song? Like which one of these makes more sense? Okay, like I don't know that I want to give them treasures right now. Like maybe use the swan song and then you use that first. Or you go, do I use the MBT right now or do I use the Fluster Storm? Which one makes more sense? Do I burn my Force of Negation right now or do I just use like a Fierce Guardian? You know what I mean? Knowing when to use stuff like that. Like getting a feel for that. Because that is another big piece is like play cEDH. If you're just playing a deck that doesn't allow you to play cEDH, if there's a difference I feel like between playing cEDH, which is what a lot of these top tier decks do, like Farm and some of these other decks, they're truly playing cEDH versus like playing a fringe deck and you're playing cEDH, but you're not really. You're just
but that's the difference between bracket 4 and bracket 5.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. You're playing cEDH,
CEDH.
But in reality, you're playing a deck.
Yeah.
Like the deck doesn't interact. It doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
If left alone, you're just like again, I'm gonna use Sithis. If I'm playing Sithis and cEDH, I'm playing Sithis. I can say it's cEDH, but like I'm just playing Sithis. Like if left to my own devices long enough, I'll stumble into a win.
Unless you're James Stratton, and then
he's actually playing cEDH. That dude cooks people on Sithis. He's actually good with the deck. But seriously, and so like you're not really. Are you really playing cEDH at that point, or are you just playing a deck? Like you're just kind of like you take your actions and then you sit there and you set your cards down. And you're like, okay, pass turn. And then now everybody else is playing cEDH. And then when it gets back to my turn, it's like, okay, now I'm back to just playing Sithis. Storm. Yeah, you got your Ristic Stage draw. Storm. Oh, okay, go ahead. And they're like, oh, you have anything to stop this win attempt? You just fed him 10 cards. And you're like, no. You know what I mean? And now, don't get me wrong. I don't do that. I don't just like feed the hell out of Ristics. I'm not going to do that. I run so much enchantment hate. But I think that that's another very important part, like truly getting to play cEDH.
Yeah.
Like not just saying, I'm playing this deck. I'm playing cEDH. I'm playing the stack. I'm playing the political game. I'm mulliganing appropriately for what's around me. I'm stopping wins. I'm making deals. I'm trying to, I'm trying to threat assess. That to me is playing cEDH.
Right.
Not just, so all I go burr or like I, Zer go constantly swing, get Ristic.
Yeah.
Zer do necro thing. Oh, it failed. Okay.
Well, and I feel like the only way, like again, kind of trying to bring that back and go, okay, then how do we get better at that?
Mm-hmm.
When you're talking about like, and obviously like some of what you're talking about there, like comes back to the intentionality of it, the holding each other accountable, making sure you're playing at that level of things as you're going through. I feel like a lot of what you're talking about there, though, is still the experience piece.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, and we've discussed this with our local meta quite a bit. And that even a while back there, like you questioned me because I took like a break. I'm going to call it a break from politicking and things like that, just because of our local meta, and more so focused on like just game action, game action, game action. But like I think that experience is not so much just the game itself, but the experience in gaining the confidence in
Mhm.
it. Like, being able to, okay, I'm not sure whether or not this is going to work if I say this, but I feel like I just need to go ahead and say it anyway. I
Mhm.
need to go ahead and say what's on my mind because it could impact the game here. And if it doesn't, okay, you learn next time. Okay, maybe I didn't say it the right way. Maybe I didn't, express what it is I'm actually trying to get across here. But the only way you could get better at that is continue to do it,
Mhm.
and be able to, so that way next time, or you go into a tournament, you go to an event, whatever, you're going, okay, I see this point in the game here. I need to go on ahead and say what I need to and address it before it gets out of hand. Because right now, I might be the only person that's aware of this.
Mhm.
And so you have to be confident in what you're doing. And the only way you can do that is if you are gaining that experience.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, I think that's one of the toughest things, man, just about CDH is it's I one of the my favorite thing is because I obviously like love talking to people. So like I love that this format is a 4-player format and it's like so social and there's a lot of interaction. I love that because again, like coming from 60 card, I love this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I say 60 card, Yu-Gi-Oh's 40 card, who cares? But I mean you can run 60 cards, but whatever. So like 60 cards. But I love the interaction piece of it, like being able to talk and politic and do stuff. But it is a skill, even if some people hate it and some people go, "Oh, yap, 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 yap." If you're not going to use the skill, it will deteriorate. It will
Yes.
get worse. All of the skills will. So I think that it's it's so fun that we run this, like that we have this format that is so social, but at the same time, it can be very tough at times.
Yep.
Because you rely on everybody being willing to show up and do the thing.
Right.
It's kind of hard to get 4 people together that have a like-minded mindset going into it and saying, "Hey." And I think that as we continue to see our local meta grow, as we continue to go to tournaments, I would hope that people would be more on board with that sort of stuff. But at the same time, also if you're somebody that is in, let's say you have a local scene and you feel like the people you're playing cEDH with or whatever, they're not on board with these things that we're talking about in this video, first and foremost, just have a conversation with them. Talk to them. Say, hey, this is what we want out of this format, this game, whatever, and see if you're even aligned. And if y'all are not aligned, maybe the whole time that y'all were playing, they thought that's what they were doing. And you have to be like, hey, look, no,
Right.
That's not what's been happening. And then you can have that conversation and then things can shift. But before doing anything else, I would encourage people to just rule 0.
No.
Have a rule 0 conversation and see. That's essentially what all rule 0 means is just have a conversation.
Yeah.
Talk to the players at the table.
Right.
And
sometimes feelings are going to get hurt
Yeah.
on it. But and I'm not trying to say like, even the point of today's conversation, or like if other people kind of pick up on some of these things we've talked about and go, maybe I should have a conversation like that with my play group. Like the goal is not to hurt anyone's feelings. The goal is to not just for yourself to get better, but for everyone in your space to improve and get better. And so these are just ways that like, and we've kind of talked about this in the past couple weeks as well. Like these are just ideas that we are getting off the top of our head.
Yeah,
and having a discussion on as we're going through. It's not a full-blown, well thought out conversation.
I'll just address that right now real quick. Anybody that thinks that we script this stuff out or that we like plan,
fuck no.
Fuck no. We even had somebody that commented on it, and which we appreciate you commenting on our video, but they made a comment about how the conversation we had last week about Blue Farm, they were like, well, it could have been a little more like, thought out and everything else. We literally want these conversations to feel like you're just sitting in a room with your friends having a conversation about cEDH. We show up to record, and literally as Chase walks through the door, he goes, "So what are we recording today?" That is how much effort goes into shit. So if you guys ever have stuff you want us to talk about and you want to see something that's more like thought out, we can do that. But until then, we're just gonna fucking rift. And you just chime in the comment section, put your input. If you like what we say it. If you
If you
hate
don't
what we
like
say,
what we fucking say
say it.
it.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it, but that's what I love about doing this. Like it's, yeah, some channels you do have, it's very scripted and very detailed and well thought out and planned on what they're going to say and things like that. We are not. So if you're not looking forward to that, still subscribe, but just don't watch it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man, and I feel like this is a topic that we can kind of go on for like several hours about, like,
Yeah.
and maybe I know we've kind of been talking about this for a while anyway. And before we sum things up, I do think there is another point to kind of address, unless you have some more things. But there is, in that last video that we did, as far as us doing the tournament recap and like looking over some of these comments, there were a few comments people were talking about, like, being able to track your games and being like aware, and there's apps like that. I know you've kind of talked about one here recently that like y'all introduced you to.
Yeah. Play nice.
Yeah.
It's nice. It's cool. You are limited on the number of decks that you can track on there,
Yeah.
which is unfortunate. But I mean, even if you just have access to like an Excel sheet, you can do that. But it's really nice. So yeah, if I think tracking your games, being intentional that way too, is very important. Like I've started tracking my games on Xur. It lets me It lets me set if it was a tournament setting.
Yeah.
It lets me set if it was on spell table or in person. It lets me like put locations. You can even put custom locations. Like I set a location to where it was like our local store.
Yeah.
You can set like what seed order you're in. You can set what your mulligan was. Like you can even put your starting hand, the combo that won you the game, MVP,
Oh, that's cool.
MVP cards for you during the game. Like let's say for you, you had a game and like it wasn't the thing that won you the game, but Aether Vial was just chilling and it was like coming in clutch. You could be like MVP card of the game, Aether Vial, or it was a couple of cards.
Right.
You can set all sorts of stuff. And then you even have a section for notes. Maybe you didn't win, but you can like check a box that said I would have won if it got back to my turn. There's certain settings for like how you won. It'll say like, I won first. Like I won before anybody else won. I won after. So somebody went for a win attempt, got stopped. I won. I won through, as in like people were feeding wrist sticks and we were having a counter war and I won. Like you can just set whatever you want. It could be a draw. I think it's super helpful and it tracks all these stats. So if you're not tracking your games, I think that's super important. I think obviously having intentionality behind why you're tracking your games. Don't just track them and then never go back and look at it.
Right.
Like I've been going back and looking and I've noticed that for some reason, I don't know why the hell this is, but the lower that I mulligan, the better I do.
Yeah.
I don't know why that is.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Like my average mulligan whenever I win is a 4. Yeah. So when I go to 4, I'm way more likely to win than if I'm above 4.
Yeah.
4 or less is more likely for me to win than if I am like 5 or higher.
That's wild.
Very weird. Yeah. I don't
that's,
understand it.
Maybe there's more cards in the deck, so you see more.
I don't know.
But I think that, you were kind of going through and describing the details on the app and things like that. And obviously it's cool that there are apps out there to be able to input all of that information. I think a good place to start on that though is like literally just what deck you're on and maybe just seed order.
Yeah.
And whether or not you won or lost.
Yeah.
Like those 3 things. Because then, and I'm going to tie this back into that piece that I was talking about as far as like, making sure that like it's okay to play like different decks and figure out what suits your play style the most or what you like seem to do well with.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could take that information and go, well, I really like Turbo, but on all these decks, I'm actually performing better on a mid-range deck, or I'm performing better on a control deck. Yeah. Maybe I need to look more into that.
Or maybe you look and you're saying, I love Turbo, and your average win is on turn 5. You know what I mean? Like it lets you track it lets you track the turn that like everything ended. So like same thing. You could be like, man, I'm playing Turbo, but I'm always winning like later in the game. Like the games where I go for it early, I never get there.
Right.
But yeah.
And that's kind of what I'm saying. Like, let that data kind of drive your informed opinion on things and kind of go, okay, like, even though this is maybe something that I really want to play or I enjoy playing, and it's nothing wrong with like enjoying playing that play style, obviously, but like, I need to look in this direction because the stats are showing that I'm actually performing better whenever I'm doing this.
Mhm.
So what elements of that can I either take and bring into the turbo style, or do I need to kind of learn this a little bit more and see how I feel about it and just be able to reflect on that a lot more?
Yeah.
So, and I think whenever you do that, like when you're open to the idea of like not just doing that, but then taking that piece and expanding upon it, of not of being like very self-reflective of it, as well as like open to critique on things, that's when you really start to get better
Mhm.
on things. Like whenever you kind of push past your own like preconceived notions of the game and like where you are at as a player, and like you kind of start listening more to like other people's input, or like really kind of understand, okay, maybe I'm not where I thought I was, or I don't feel like I'm at this point, how do I get to that point? Like
Mhm.
that's when you truly start to see the growth.
Yeah. No, I can agree with that. Yeah. I think there's just so much nuance that can go into everything, man. It's this format just has so many pieces and like moving parts to it, and there is a lot of variance to it. The pod that you're in, the people you're playing against, the decks you see, the seed order that you end up in a tournament, all these things can play into stuff. So, but I do think obviously skill will outshine a lot of that. Like if it didn't, you wouldn't consistently see the people that keep doing the best constantly doing the best. You know what I mean?
Right.
If if it was all just luck, I don't think we would see Ian constantly crushing everybody on a variety of different decks at a variety of different
Yeah.
tournaments with a ton like different seeding orders and different like locations and different meta, all sorts of stuff. You know what I mean? It's just skill will take you the farthest, and then you just kind of use that other stuff to like help you get those little incremental bits. But
Yeah. So yeah, I think we've worn this one out. We've jumped from thing to thing. I think that we've we've talked about quite a bit. I think that if I had to kind of try and really condense most of what we talked about, and you could tell me whether or not I'm forgetting something, and you all could tell me whether or not I'm forgetting about something. I think that as far as what we've touched on today, making sure that you're in a consistent play group with expectations and just having those tough conversations and holding each other accountable,
mm-hmm.
being able to get in quality reps on things and making sure that you're seeking out those different outlets, whether it's within local spell table, whatever, to ensure that that's happening, having the intentionality of what it is you're going into to your play group to focus on, not maybe not even just for yourself, but you know, everyone, as you are trying to get better, being able to have a little bit of exploration with things while also being intentional about refining and the process of doing that, whether it's you're tracking your games and you're being on the app or Excel spreadsheet or whatever, and what decks you're best performing on.
Mm-hmm.
Give me a second because I'm drawing but we talk about a lot of things. I feel like, so give me a second. I'm trying to think about the rest of it.
Well, just like the individual skills of CEDH.
Yeah, literally just like making sure that you're honing on the individual skills, whether that is the mulligans, the awareness, like the, you know, the politicking, things like that, and making sure you're doing it in a way that you are trying to do it to the best of your ability. So that brings me back to like that, like being confident in what you were trying to do. And if it doesn't work, that's okay. Like learn from it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, be able to reflect, and then next time you're presented with that kind of situation, be able to recall that and go, okay, this is what happened last time. Either it was successful and I need to try politicking this way again, or I need to rethink what I'm doing here.
Mm-hmm.
And being open to, you know, not just like giving yourself constructive feedback, but being able to be open to others' constructive feedback on things as a post-game conversation, and going, okay, these are the things that did work. These are the things that didn't work. How do we make adjustments here?
Mm-hmm. I agree. Yeah, I think that really does sum it up pretty well. I think that I feel like I've done a good job of not getting too stumped this video, and I'm finally finding myself a little bit stumped. I think that that's ultimately like just the biggest goal, or like the biggest piece is like find a group that your goals and their goals align to some extent, like they closely align to some extent, even if it's just for them that they want to get better at casual play. Maybe they don't want to go to tournaments, but they just want to get better at casual play. They want to win more games in casual setting. Because we all know that person that's like a beater, like a world beater, whenever it comes to just like, they show up on like Thursday, Friday Night Magic, whatever it is. But then you go, hey, why don't you go to tournaments? And they're like, nah, not for me.
Yeah.
But then they crush you everywhere. Like, we all know that person, I feel like. Just make sure that you guys are aligned. And if you do that, I think that everybody will get better. But I think also the big thing is just have a conversation. Like, talk to people. I think even we could do better about that. Like talking to our local people, everybody sitting down and saying, hey, this is what we want out of the game. Anybody that is on board, we want to play more games with you.
Yep.
If you are not on board, it's not that we don't want to play games with you. It's just that for the time being, we are going to prioritize games with these people.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But yeah.
Yep.
But nonetheless, I'm still having fun playing CEDH. You got anything else though? Besides telling them to like, subscribe, do the damn thing. Tell your grandmother to subscribe.
Yeah.
Your grandpappy, grandmammy.
You know, I feel like the only thing we really didn't touch on was coaching. I think that if say you don't have access to any of these things, but you're able to connect with someone in an online space. I know that you've talked with Ian before, and you've had conversations with Logan and even Kellen and like a few other people, like, and I think that kind of goes back to the confidence piece. Like, don't be afraid to reach out to people, because more likely, like, the worst that anyone could say is no, but there are people in this space that are willing and dedicated to helping. So reach out to those people. And I do kind of hope that one day, like, even we are able to have a little bit more informed opinions on things as we're in this journey now of trying to get better. But maybe one day we are on that level of being able to coach and help people and things like that too. So
there's a lot of people in the space that you can ask questions to. Like, again, Logan, a lot of the guys from Critical do coaching. Ian does coaching. I know Pigeon does coaching. I know, there's a lot of people in the space now that are doing coaching. I know Max does coaching. There's a lot of people that you can turn to. Lots of resources. Like, we are truly in this like crazy golden age of cEDH. The resources are there. We just got to use them.
Yep.
And I honestly, just from speaking from experience of somebody who has done coaching sessions with multiple other people, I think that you will have to work around, like, go get a couple of sessions from a couple different people, figure out who you feel like you're getting the most from in that amount of time, and then continue with that. I think that that's one of the benefits that I've had of being able to reach out to a couple of different people, is that I have found that I'm more receptive to maybe one individual than another, or the advice that I got from somebody was the thing that I needed at that time. Whereas like this thing that I got from somebody was really good, but it just wasn't necessarily what I needed at that moment, or maybe I wasn't as receptive, or maybe I just wasn't as prepared going into that session, whatever it may be. But I think we have the resources. They're there. Just go
use them.
Yep.
So yeah, I just wanted to kind of insert that as like the last thing, because we didn't really touch on that in this, but I do think that if you don't have access to some of these other things, and sometimes, you know, even with coaching, like the financial end of things, like times are still tough, and so that's not always a feasible thing. But you know, there's a reason why even with Critical, like they've posted some of the sessions, the coaching sessions and things like that. Like, go to these other channels and watch content like that, because you might even get something out of it for yourself to improve your own game plan.
Yeah. And if nothing else, most Discords are going to have an advice section. So if you just want some free advice, go hop into the Discord, go hop in, you know, whether it's our Discord, Critical's Discord, you go to MTG Basic, wherever, and then just ask questions.
Yep.
Because somebody's going to answer your question.
Yep. Absolutely. So that was my last thing. I don't have anything else. You have anything else? Okay. So with that being said, if you agree with what we talked about today, if you disagreed with what we talked about today, if you felt like we were too much all over the place and you're like, you all need to structure your shit, well, give us some ideas on what you all want to see. It will never It'll never happen. It'll happen. But you know, even and he just talked about our Discord. Jump in our Discord as well, because there have been more people joining and getting together and not just playing games, but having open discussions and positive discussions, and are putting out like suggestions for content and things like that. We do appreciate that. We do appreciate the feedback as much as we joke around about it and things like that. Like we do care about what you all say and what you all think, even if it hurts our feelings at times. So it'll be fine. We got thick skin. But anyway, that will be all for today's video. So if you liked what we discussed, let us know down in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and as always,
go play some cEDH.